Well, the U.S. Supreme Court saved Donald Trump's ass again. They are pulling back on a decision by a federal judge, forcing them to rehire thousands of federal workers who were fired. In the 7-2 ruling, the court sided with the Trump administration, allowing it to proceed with firing these workers. More than 16,000 workers, many of them still in their probationary period. And the workers were let go as part of a sweeping move by the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief, the con man Donald Trump, and his fake Department of Government Efficiency, known as DOGE, to downsize the federal government aggressively. Justices Ketanji Jackson and Sonia Sotomayor spoke out against the decision. Justice Jackson said the administration, frankly, was being out of line. They said they had not shown enough urgency to justify pushing this case so quickly to the Supreme Court, suggesting that this was more about a power grab. You think? Other lawsuits still pending. One federal judge in Maryland has already blocked these firings in nearly 20 states in the District of Columbia. Now, you take this decision and you also factor in them allowing them to continue to fly people out of the country who have not gotten due process. And what it shows you is that the Trump administration, they're banking on this right Supreme Court allowing them to do whatever they want. My pal, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice, the EPA out of D.C. A. Scott Bolden, he's an attorney here in D.C. Derek Jackson, state representative, Georgia District 68 out of Atlanta. Glad to have all three of you here. I suppose I'll start with the Kappa lawyer, Scott Bolden. So, Scott, let's go ahead and deal with the law here. Bottom line is, Donald Trump's whole strategy is, hey, challenge a lawsuit, go to the Supreme Court. He believes the Supreme Court is going to let him do whatever he wants. They don't want to go through the normal process. They want to fast track everything. And that's what Justice Brown Jackson was saying. Whoa, wait a minute. How in the hell is this case all of a sudden to us so quickly?
Yeah, you know, the Article 3 courts, the circuits, as well as the federal district courts, are saving our democracy right now. They're doing their jobs, Republican or democratically appointed. The Supreme Court seems to keep saving him, but it absolutely makes no sense when you have lower courts who are saying you simply can't do this. And so I think you're right about the strategy. Their strategy is go through the courts as quickly as possible, avoid the courts as quickly as possible, get to the Supreme Court as soon as possible, and hope that they save them. Now, in regard to the Venezuelan gangs that they transported to El Salvador, they didn't get the relief that they really wanted.
No. I'm sorry. The alleged gang members.
Yeah, many of them are alleged because at least two we know certainly aren't gang members. But they left open. See, the Supreme Court gave the ACLU some relief, saying, well, they're entitled to due process, but it was silent as to, well, where do we go from here? What does that mean going forward? But more importantly, what about the alleged gang members that are in San Salvador right now, San Salvador prison now, and since they didn't get their due process rights? Are you going to order the government to fly them back, give them due process rights? They were completely silent, which means those alleged prisoners or those alleged gang members stay there for now. So, again, that's the place of relief. That's why elections matter. And that's why the Republicans have stacked that court for this very reason. Watch the Republican administration or watch the Trump administration to take full advantage of it. And that's another dangerous weapon of theirs in regard to whitewashing and destroying our democracy.
Mustafa, here's what's utterly insane. You take the case. 60 Minutes did a report showing that 75% of the people they put on planes that flew out of the country did not even have a criminal record. And so what critics are suggesting is that these people are offering no due process. What they are simply doing is snatching people off the streets, throwing them in detention facilities, and sending them out of the country. I saw this one video of a woman in Louisiana who was whining, crying, and complaining because her father, who's been here for 45 years, who was invited into the country from Cuba, guess what? They grabbed him, did not care. Well, guess what? Go talk to all those Cubans who voted for Donald Trump. This is exactly what black people and others were warning that was going to happen, that they were going to racially profile and just start snatching people up. And we're seeing this. Latinos, Muslims, you name it, and they're just sending them out of the, say, we'll deal with them later. And even in the case of El Salvador, literally fighting it and trying to ignore the judge's decision while the plane was in the air by saying, international waters, sorry, you have no jurisdiction. That's how illegal these people are operating.
Yeah, that they continue to not want to follow the law in any form or fashion unless it is against them, and then they want the law, they want justice to actually be front and center. Unfortunately, our country is supposed to be founded. Due process is supposed to be one of the sort of hallmark things that helps to set us apart from dictatorships across the planet. But these folks don't seem to want to follow that for some reason. And black folks, as you shared, we warned them that these types of things could actually happen because we went through it throughout the history of this country, where they used to just grab brothers off the street, sisters as well, and say they were just vagrants and then lock them up because they wanted free labor. So we have a history with this, and that's the reason that we were sounding the alarm. You've got an administration that is a rogue administration. It is an administration that feels like that they can do whatever they want. And when you have, Scott so aptly laid out, some of the district courts and some of the others that have been doing the right thing. But when you have a Supreme Court that seems to not be as concerned about justice, not so concerned about the Constitution, not so concerned about every individual's rights, then you have a very precarious situation going on here where, whether you happen to be Latino or you happen to be Muslim or you happen to be a number of other groups that they don't seem to value their lives as much, then, we've got to continue to fight, push back, highlight these injustices that are going forward, and then make sure that we have politicians and judges moving forward when we have the opportunity to have those people in place that actually want to honor the rule of law.
Derek, the thing here, again, MAGA, Donald Trump, all these right-wingers, they're mad and upset that these federal judges are ruling against them, but they didn't mind when those federal judges ruled against President Joe Biden. Now they want to change the law to target those federal judges, including even impeach them. Newt Gingrich was on the Capitol Hill. We showed the video last week talking about, how one judge shouldn't have all of this power. And he was lit up by Congressman Joe Nagase by saying, I'm sorry, why were you so silent when it happened under Biden? They are hypocrites. And they only want what's good for them and no one else.
Roland, once again, we're sounding the alarm, right? We sound the alarm during Project 2025. We're sounding the alarm again. The whole essence of Project 2025 now, this Trump administration, is to consolidate government. This is to make sure all the powers rest in the executive branch. They don't want no safeguards. They don't want no checks and balances. They want to be able to do as they so will. I mean, think about, what we've been talking about so far this evening, and that is this whole law that they're using from 1789. The Alien Enemies Act made sure that the United States had to be declared in war. We're not at war. And so we have to look at what they're really trying to signal. And that is not just picking up the other. One day they're going to start picking up citizens, black and brown people, and taking them to El Salvador and Cuba and other places. Because when you start to do that, they're going to really execute the plan in Project 2025, which is, as they've already stated, to deport 20 million citizens. The word immigration is not in there. It said 20 million citizens. So this is just a test run when you start to kidnap people, because that's what this is, picking them up and not saying where they're going and then taking them to another country. That's problematic.
And let me be real clear here, folks. And Scott, I think this is really important. Look, you got a lot of black people who are like, yo, I'm down with this. Send their asses back. But there still is a phrase, two words that matter. It's called due process. And if you take the position that, oh, send them back, I don't care, and you completely ignore due process, you know what that means? They are going to not allow due process in other areas.
Yeah, and have before, and if you believe this is the third Reconstruction, as you often talk about, then we're next on the targeted list. I joke with my colleagues about, have you got your camp number yet? Because they're coming for us next, because the black and brown immigrants who are here, they've got a target on their back. Listen, the beauty of due process is everyone's entitled to it, and when you become a target of the criminal justice system or the immigration system, you certainly do want due process. Now, the only reason this government is doing this is simply to expedite the deportation, to feed the MAGA appetite for eliminating black and brown people in anticipation of 2043, when we become a country of color, if you will. That's it. This is purely political. And if you listen to the rhetoric of not only MAGA supporters, but the administration and the president, all they talk about and all they market is what they're to match their rhetoric. That's it. It's to expedite, to get rid of the worst and the criminals. But you see, you make mistakes that they have to admit when you don't give them due process. They're terrified of the lower courts because even their own lawyers for DOJ, who don't have the information, are being fired by the Attorney General for not, quote, being prepared in court or zealously advocating for these illegal programs or this illegal conduct. They're actually being terminated for not following these orders that are really illegal orders. And so people talk about a constitutional crisis, Roland. We've been in a constitutional crisis from the moment in January when this new administration was sworn in and stuff. And the courts are trying to save us, but no one else is. Congress is not going to save us. The executive branch isn't going to save us, which is why we got 2 years, 16 months, right, to try to take this House of Representatives back so we can have a legal mechanism to push back. Sure, we got to vote and register and vote up and down the ballot and all the other great stuff that you talk about. But in the end, it's beyond Cory Booker standing there for 25 hours. We need real power, and the first opportunity to do that is with this House of Representatives. Last point is the House of Representatives and the congressional vote in 2 years or 60 months is super important, because I can tell you right now, within 3 years of this operation that we call an administration, they're going to try to figure out a way, legally or illegally, for Trump to keep the presidency illegally for another 4 years. That's going to be the long-term challenge, but it's creeping up on us very fast.
Yeah, it's about power. And again, Mustafa, if you are allowed not to provide due process in one area, what these thugs have shown is that they are then going to begin to apply that in other areas as well. Look, the Supreme Court, it says equal justice under law. And we can't, even if you're somebody black watching and listening and you believe just send everybody back, you had better understand due process, because if there's any group of people who have a history with America not giving them any due process, is black people. Just ask every family that has had a history of lynching.
Without a doubt. I mean, Dr. King laid it out for us. He said injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. He had real intentionality in sharing those words. Of course, in the moment, the things that they were dealing with, they saw every time that they made a positive step forward, that people were pushing back. And they were pushing back in a number of areas, whether it was, around access, or whether it was around housing, or a number of other things. You can go down the list of the things where he knew that we had to hold the line. So for brothers and sisters out there, I mean, I get the impacts that are happening in our communities. Everybody knows I done worked in a whole bunch of them all over the place. But we have to make sure that we are not allowing the erosion of justice to continue to happen. because we are next, unfortunately, in the crosshairs. Some would say we're already in those crosshairs, and they said that these people that they're sending back there are criminals and those types of things. Well, they try and criminalize us all the time, and we understand that that's just the next step in being able to move us wherever they might see fit. So we need to pay particular attention to what's going on. Yes, we have to focus on the issues that are happening inside of our communities, but we also got to understand that there is an interconnectedness to what is going on, and we have to be prepared to also make some investments in this space to make sure that we are not the next ones that find ourselves, in a number of black site locations across the planet. And I'll stop there so I don't get in trouble.
Well, but they don't get in trouble. I mean, bottom line here, Derek, when Mustafa talked about, excuse me?
I'm surprised you still on the air. You should be going underground because they coming for you next. You look like you from Africa or something.
I'm 2 blocks from here. Tell them to bring their punk asses here.
You got one lawyer in your corner.
Bring their punk asses here. As a hashtag, bring your ass. Derek, bottom line is, what we are facing right now, Derek, we are facing a bunch of scared punks in this country. Okay? You got punk-ass law firms that are buckling, that are kissing his butt. Republicans. You got Democrats that are buckling. You got people who are scared to death. Oh, my God. You got all these Silicon Valley folks who got more money than anybody, who are doing all they can to kiss his ass. No, this is a moment where people must stand up to the thug, stand up to the bully, stand up to the con man, and our legal warriors must be doing what they are supposed to do, fighting using the law. These thugs, Donald Trump, thug, J.D. Vance, thug, Elon Musk, thug, Stephen Miller, thug, all of them, Pam Bondi, thug, Cash Patel, thug, Dan Bongino, thug. They do not care about the rule of law. They do not care about the Constitution. All they care about is doing whatever they want, when they want, and everyone else who disagrees be damned.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Roland. And I tell you what, they also know that their time span is short. I mean, if you think about what just took place over this weekend, nearly 6 million people across the United States. I mean, they had some signs out there. I know here in Atlanta, Roland, we had 30,000 folks that marched 2.5 miles. And if you read some of the signs, it wasn't saying that we want Trump. I mean, they had some very egregious words for this bully. And when you think about what also is happening in the stock market, I posted today, hey, last time I checked, DEI didn't crash the stock market. And LGBTQ transgender that did not cause for $12 trillion. You had Tim Cook, Johnny Damon, JP Morgan, all these folks now saying, oh, we didn't expect this. What were they expecting? What were they expecting, Roland? Everybody that was on the front seat during his inauguration, what were they expecting for him to do? They just thought the rain was going to fall on black people? They just thought the thunderstorms were going to fall in our neighborhoods? $12 trillion, Roland, has been lost in the stock market. Now you have 4 Republicans in the Senate who are voting with Democrats right now saying we need to put some legislation, and forget all this litigation stuff. We need legislation. But then the Speaker of the House, Roland, he says, trust the process. But this is the same individual who will not go back to Louisiana and conduct a town hall meeting. These bullies, these thugs do not want to face the music. And the music is that those 6 million people that were marching this past Saturday, they want that ass, point blank. And they don't want to face the music.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.